y'all ready for this?
Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If it's the first time here, you're welcome. If you're already a subscriber, hi. I'm sorry it took me this long to post the video. God, this week has been, well, I'm glad I'm back here. So this is the outfit we're making today. If it's something you're interested in seeing, please keep on watching. Alright guys, so let's get into it. So I'm just showing you the fabric I'll be using. Please use a fabric that has a two-way stretch. I mean, it stretches at the side and it stretches at the top. Please make sure your fabric stretches. Oh, alright, so let's get into it. So these are the measurements I'll be needing, or rather we will be needing: your bust, your waist, your hip, your chest width, your back width, back length, waist to hip, your dress length, your sleeve length, and your bicep round. So I'm showing you how to get your shoulder to bust length, because these are pretty standard sizes and you cannot get this from measurements. So for bust sizes 32 to 38, you use 8 1/4. If your bust fall within that range, 8 1/4. Now for sizes 32 and below, that's 31, you minus 1/4 from it. What I mean is 31 will be 8 inches, 30 will be 7 3/4, 29 will be 7 1/2, and then 28 will be 7 1/4. So for every 1 inch down, you're minusing 1/4. Now for every 1 inch above 38, you're adding 1/4. So 39 will be 8 1/2, 40 will be 8 3/4, 41 will be 9, and just like that, 42 will be 9 1/4. So you keep going up. For every inch after 38, you add 1/4. So that's what I was trying to explain here with this diagram. So if yours fall within whatever range, you know what your shoulder to your bust is. So now for the waist to the hip length, I'm just trying to show you how to get that. So this is something I've been using over the years and it works for me. So whatever your hip size, just use within this table and you'll get the perfect hip size. So for hip sizes 36 and below, I use 8. So that's 36, 35, 34, 33, all the way down, 8 inches. Now for hip sizes that fall between 37 and 39, I like to use 8 1/2. It will sit perfectly on your hip, from your waist to your hip. That's what I'm saying, 8 1/2. Now for hip sizes 40 and below, that's 41, 42, 43, and all that, I use 9. It works for me, so that's what I'm using. So guys, there are some people that have really special body types that have very low hips. Now for people like that, you can use 10 inches for those type of low hips. So now I'm going back to my measurement. I'm going to be minusing 6 inches from my bust, from my waist, and from my hip, because this fabric stretches. So that's, guys, please make sure your fabric is two-way stretch. Oh, please make sure your fabric is two-way stretch. It stretches a lot. So I'm marking that. For my chest width, I'm taking away 1 1/2 inch. From my back width, I'm taking away 1 1/2 inch. Guys, to know how to measure the rest of these measurements, please watch my video of how to take your own measurements. I'll leave that link down below. So those are the only parts I took away. From my bust, my hip, and my waist, I removed 9 inches from my original measurements, and that's why you see I have the new measurements on the side. So now we're going to get to the pattern proper. So first of all, I'm just drawing out my border line, which is my start line, 1 inch. I'm just ruling that. That's where I'm going to start my lines from. So now remember that measurement we just did, that whole mathematics we solved, our shoulder to our bust line. So mine falls within the 8 1/4 inch. So that's what I'm just marking. And then I'm just going to rule that across and then make it visible with my marker. So that's what I'm just showing you guys there. So the next thing I'm going to be measuring, it's my shoulder to my hip measurement. Please guys, all my measurements, you can see I'm starting from the border line. Please start from the border line. But I didn't mark the border line in black because I'm not going to be using it for the front. But I need to be able to get all these measurements so that it affects the front and the back. That's why I have my border line. So please make sure your measurements are from your border line. So now I'm marking my waist to hip measurement, the one I showed you guys how to get. So mine falls within the 8 inch range. So I'm just putting that down. And then I'm ruling that across with my marker. So I'm folding my paper into 2 so I can work on my back first before I go into my front. So now the first thing I'm going to be doing is marking my borderline visible, because I only need it for the back. So I'm just making that visible up to half a point. Guys, please at this point, if you have not subscribed, please don't forget to subscribe. So now I'm dividing that from the shoulder to the bust into 2, and I'm marking that measurement. just halfway. You can mark it from the beginning to the end, but I feel halfway is better. It's okay for me because I only need it at that point. I'm marking my shoulder measurement, which is 1.5 inch. I'm rolling that halfway. I'm going to be marking my neck width, which is 2.5 inches. From that point, I'm marking 1/2 inch on top of that. So the next thing I'm marking is my back width, half of my back width. I mark that on the neckline, the shoulder, and the top. I'm just connecting it into that's that line I made, the half of my back width. So now I'm going to mark in 1/2 inch on my shoulder line, 1/2 inch after that line, 1/2 inch of that, connecting that 1/2 inch point to the 1/2 inch at the top of the neckline. So that's my shoulder line. So now I'm going to use my curve to just blend from that 1/2 inch point into my borderline, and that's my back neckline. So the next thing I'm marking is my new bust measurement. That's my initial bust minus my 6 inches. So I'm marking my new plus 1/4 inch allowance for my sleeve. So I'm going to connect those 3 points together. Please guys, remember your new bust, the new one, you've minus your 6 inches, not your original bust. So 1/4 of that is what I marked. That's or 1/4 by 1/4 I mean divided by 4. So on the waist, I'm marking 1/2 inch first. Then from that 1/2 inch point, I'm marking my new waist measurement divided by 4. And then I'll be connecting that to my bust line. So I'm marking my new hip measurement divided by 4. And then I'm connecting that to the waistline. Guys, you see how small this pattern is looking? It's because I've taken away 6 inches from my original measurements. So I'm just extending that hip measurement all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to rule that, connect that to the hip. Guys, you guys notice I'm now a lot slower with my videos. I noticed a lot of people were complaining I was fast and all that. So I tried to be slower, and I hope you guys please leave me comments. So on my front, I've cleaned away my border line, the front line, because I don't need that. So I'm measuring my shoulder line, which is 2 inches. I just ruled that across 2 inches, starting from the top of the paper now, not any border line, the top of the paper. I'm marking my neckline, which is 2.5 inches, just like the back. Then my neck depth will also be 2.5 inch for the front. I'm just marking that out, 2.5. So I'm going to square that, and then I'm going to use my curve ruler to create my front neckline. So that's that. So I'm going to be taking my measurement of my shoulder width at the back, my shoulder length at the back, and I'm creating it at the front, starting from the edge of the neckline, extending, slanting it to touch my shoulder line. Do you see what I did there? So that's my shoulder line, exactly the same at the back, just like the front. So I'm marking that. So the next thing, I'm marking my chest, where my chest width will be, which is 1.5 inch from the bust line. So that's what I ruled out there. So now I'm marking the half of my new chest width divided by 4. Divided by 2, I'm sorry, my new chest width divided by 2. So now I'm marking my bust exactly like the back. My new bust measurement plus 1/4 inch for ease. I'm connecting that point on my chest line to my shoulder line. I'm folding that in half so I can get the half point of that. Marking 1/2 inch away from that point. I'm going to connect those 3 lines together with a curve for my armhole. So my front armhole is ready. So now I'm going to mark in my waistline. My new waist measurement divided by 4 again, exactly like we did at the back. But this time I'm starting from the border. So I'm marking that to the bust line. I'm marking my new hip measurements divided by 4. I'm extending that all the way to the bottom. And then I'm going to connect all those points. So I'm connecting those points. So now we're going to go back. I'm just showing you this is the front, so we know that that's the front. I'm marking my new length of my dress. I decided to go with 34. So if you want yours shorter, you want yours longer, at this point just mark your length. So for my length, guys, I started from my waist. When I mean my waist, I mean like if my waist measurement, my shoulder to my waist was 15, then I place my tape 15 inches on that waist, and then from there I just get my full length of 34. So that will reflect on both the front and the back. So that's what I was trying to say when I was saying I started from my waist. So remember that 1/2 inch point at the back, on the waist of the back. We're going to connecting that to the edge of the back neckline, and then that same point connects to the hip to make the back relax and be smooth and flat. So I'm going to, at the end, to pencil this dress, I'm taking 1.25 inch at the hem, and I'm going to connect that to the hip line. So that's what I'm doing. So now you know our bodies are not straight, they don't have straight lines, so I'm making a smooth curve at where those 2 points meet with my curve ruler, just smoothing it so it's rounded just like how our bodies are. I'm going to be doing the same thing at the waist, just rounding that, making a smooth curve, and then I'm just cutting it out because the back is up, his back is all ready, so I'm just trimming everything out and our back is ready. So for the front, I'm taking again 1 1/4 inch, connecting that to the hip, making the smooth curve, making a curve at the waist, and then just trimming out my new lines, and the front is ready. So guys, now it's time for the sleeve. So I'm just showing you guys the front and the back. This is what my patterns are looking like. Now for the sleeve. So guys, the first thing I'm marking is my the head of my sleeve to my bicep line. Guys, please, to know how to do this, please watch my how to draft your own sleeve block. I'll be leaving a link below. I couldn't explain that just because I didn't want this video to be so long. So after getting that line, the next thing I'm marking is my bicep round. Please guys, I'm using my bicep round is 10, so I'm using exactly 10 because this is a stretch fabric. So don't add any allowance. If you watch my original sleeve block, you see that I always add a 2 inches allowance, but for this project we're not adding any allowance because this is a stretch fabric. So I'm just marking the half of that, my 10 inches, half of my bicep line. Mine is 10 inches, so I'll just keep saying it, 10 inches, whatever yours is, please do that. So I'm marking the half of that. I'm folding my tape into 2 so I can divide this measurement into 2. So that's what I'm just doing. I'm going to rule that across. Now I'm going to get the half of that half, but just on the bicep line and all the way up. Half of that half on the left and half of that half on the right, and then I'll rule that straight across, straight to the top. So now on that first line, I'm going to mark in 2 inches. On the second line, I'm going to mark in 2 1/4 inches. I'm just going to connect that from the top to that 2-inch point to this side, and that the front I'm marking connect and connect. So guys, the side with the 2 1/4 inches the front, the other side is the back. So I'm going to be ruling my sleeve head, connecting with a curve from the top to that 2-inch point, connecting with a curve again from the top to that 2 1/4 inch point, and then I'm going to be using a curve again to connect that to the end of the front, and then this side is the back, so I'm connecting that again with a curve to the back. So guys, my original sleeve length is 25, but I made this 29 because of the design I wanted to do. I wanted the sleeve to cover my wrists, cover my hands a bit. So now on the ends, I'm marking my sleeve measurement. Please make your sleeve as tight as possible because this fabric draws. So mine was 6 inches, so I marked 3 inches on each side. So I'm just connecting that 3-inch point to my bicep line. So that's what I did to create my sleeve. I have 6 inches at the bottom, 3 inches on one side and 3 inches on the other side. So whatever yours is, that's what you will mark out. So I'm just trimming out my sleeve, following every curve, and my sleeve is ready. So guys, this is, I've cut it on my fabric. I have 1/2 and 3/4 inches all around, but on my sleeve, on my armhole I have 1/2, on my neckline I have 1/2, and on the bottom I have 1/2. Guys, my back is cut on my front is cut on fold, but my back has a seam at the back so that it can lay flat. So I'm just making a notch on my waist, a notch at the hip, so that when I'm joining them together I will know where the waist and the hips are. Just a tiny cut, that's what I mean by a notch, a very tiny cut. I'm doing that at the back. So now I'm opening up my front. I'm going to be laying my pieces on top of each other, starting with one side of the back. I'm laying that down. I'm pinning from the waist. That's what I make those notches for, so it's easy for me to remember where the waist starts from and where the hips start from, and so that one is not above the other. So I'm pinning that all the way down. I'm going to pin the other side. I'm going to pin in the back as well because I'm going to join the back seam, join the sides, and I'm also going to be joining the shoulders. So guys, I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. So I'm going to join my, so this is it. I am done doing that. You can see I've joined my sides, I've joined my center back seam, I've joined everything. So guys, I'm just showing you my neck, showing you how stretchy it is. Guys, please use a 2-way stretch fabric. If not, you will not be able to get into your dress. So if you're not going to be using a 2-way stretch fabric, please put a zipper, but the fabric has to have a stretch. Please, just for safety, use a 2-way stretch fabric. So So the next thing I'm measuring, trying to draw out, is my collar pattern. So guys, put the tape around your neck and get your entire neck as tight as possible, as tight as you can comfortable with. So mine was 12, so I'm taking half of that, marking half of that, which is 6, because I'm going to be cutting this on fold. So I've marked that out, plus half an inch allowance for my seam. So now that's 6.5 I have there. So for my length, I marked 4 inches because I wanted my collar to be 1.5 inch wide. But so the extra 1 inch there, 1.5 inch folded into 2, that's 3. Then the extra 1 inch is 1/2 inch for my allowance. So guys, what I mean is 6.5 inch wide and then 4 inch this deep. So do you see, when I fold my collar like this, I will have exactly 2 inches. So guys, I want to cut my collar. I'm using the stretchiest part of the fabric, and I'm folding that into 2, and I'm placing that on fold. So I've cut my collar out. This is what my collar is looking like. So now I'm going to sew that 1/2 inch allowance I have on the side away. So I'm done sewing that. You see what it looks like? You see how wide it is? No matter how big or how your head is, it can pass through this. So that's why I said use the stretchy part of the fabric. So guys, at this point, please pay attention to this point. I'm marking the middle part of this neck of this collar. Then I'm going to fold it again. I'm using that new middle to touch my seam. I'm going to get in my new middle again on the side, cutting that up and down. I'm doing the same thing to the other side, making a notch at the top and the down. What I'm just trying to do in this part is find the middle on both sides, find the left and find the right, the sides. So that's what I did. I cut it first of all the middle, then I folded into 2, and then I cut the other sides again. So now I want to connect this to my dress. So I'm going to fold this into 2. Do you see? I'm folding it into 2. So now I'm going to placing right side together. I'm starting with the back seam to the collar seam. Oh, sorry, first of all I folded my front neckline into 2 so I can find the middle of that. So after doing that, now I'm going to be taking my collar right sides together. I will placing the back seam, pinning the back seam to the seam on the collar, the only seam on the collar. So I'm pinning that down first. So remember that notch you made at the side? We're going to be pinning that to the side, the shoulder part of the dress of the left side. You pin that down. I'm taking this third notch again, connecting that to the middle notch I made in the front neckline, and I'm going to pin that down. Guys, the reason I'm doing this is so that the stretch is even and it will not be more stretchy on one side than the other. Distributing the stretch evenly. That's the purpose of all those notches I was making at the north, west, east and south. So on the other side again, I'm connecting that new notch to the seam at the other shoulder. So now I have 4 points. Do you see? That's the point of that notch I was explaining about, making your notches in the 4 points so that your stretch is evenly distributed. So I'm going to sew that round and show you guys what it looks like. So guys, I'm done sewing. Do you see? Please guys, as you're sewing, be stretching as you're sewing. Stretch as you sew. Do you see how wide it is? So your head can pass through that. So now it's time to fix the collar. I'm marking out the middle, making a notch at the middle of the sleeve. Sorry, it's time to fix the sleeve. I'm making a notch at the middle of the sleeve, just so I know where the middle is, and then I'm marking the front with a chalk. So I remember that this is the front, so that front fits with front and back fits with the back. So the next thing I'm going to do is close up the sides of my sleeve. Guys, remember I said my sleeve length is 25, so I'm going to be sewing mine up to 22 because of the design I have in mind. So just do yours like that. So that's, if your measurement is 24, you're going to be minusing 3 inches, which will make yours 21. So mine, I took away 3 inches from 25. Do you see the design I was trying to achieve? So this is it. So now I'm doing the same thing to the other side, and I'm going to be attaching it now to my main dress. So I'm just flipping the dress inside out, taking the first sleeve, making sure that the front, putting it inside out, making sure right side to right side. I'm making sure that the front side aligns with the front and the back aligns with the back. That's what that chalk I was marking for, so I can know that okay, this part is for the front and this part is from the back. So if you are, by this point you should be used to how I make my sleeve. So I'm pinning the middle notch to the middle shoulder, and I'm pinning the side seam to the side of the dress, just pinning that down, and then I'm going to sew, pin all the way around and sew that. Guys, please stretch any part that has more than the other, stretch so it can fit in, stretch and sew that round. So guys, I'm done sewing the left and the right. You see how it's looking, our dress is coming together. So now I'm just going to finish up the hem of the sleeve. I'm going to fold that in half and just sew that around, doing that to both sides. So guys, I'm just going to fold the hem of the dress and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Guys, can you see my dress? Can you see how nice it's looking? So I'm just showing, in case you have now you want to put a shoulder pad in yours, I'm just showing you the fabric is as stretchy enough for you to put a shoulder pad, but I liked it like this. I didn't think I needed. Guys, this dress was so beautiful. Please guys, at this point, if you've not subscribed, please don't forget to like, subscribe, leave me comments, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.